Big Footy Tiger Cast fans, welcome back to another segment of Ask Us Anything. Tonight's question has been submitted by Noah O'Connor from Twitter. So firstly, thank you, Noah, for sending this question through. It is much appreciated. And the question is, do you think that Richmond need to give Yze another year on top of the current contract? And who will our draftees be and how many? Very good question, Noah. And look, on the Yze part, I couldn't actually find anywhere how long he's currently contracted for. But look, firstly, I don't think there'd be a rush to make an extension on the contract unless it expires this year, but I don't think it does. But what I will say is, I personally, and I don't think others should as well, we shouldn't be judging Yze off the 2024 season. As silly as it sounds, because it is a results-based industry, and I understand that fully, but some of the circumstances surrounding the 2024 season for us with the injury management, we lost president, CEO, Yze just came in as his first year as coach, injuries like I mentioned, it was just a bit of a perfect storm that things weren't going to pan out as Yze had hoped for his first year at the club. I suppose what was most disappointing is there was seemingly no game plan as the year went on, and that was probably the big frustration for a lot of supporters. Maybe it was by design. Maybe he wanted to let the players play the game in their own way and show him what they can do, show him what their strengths are, so he can then identify and work on their weaknesses. I'm not sure. I really hope so, because there did look to be a lack of method in the way we moved the ball. But having said that, there was also a severe lack of personnel on the park to execute any form of game plan. So one theory that we had on the show, and a little bit of it came about from some of the conversations Tiggs had with some people that he knows within the industry, that because of where we got to with our injuries and the state of the list, like we'd used, I think, 43 of 44 possible players, which is just unimaginable, that they kind of just, in some ways, put the cue in the rack in terms of game plan because they just couldn't get a consistent team on the park for long enough to execute it. So it was right, let's just see how they play, see how they go, show us what you've got, and we'll reassess for next year. And while that may work internally for them, it was kind of a bit hard to cop externally as supporters. You know, the main one that bugged me is our kick-out strategy, for example. All we did every single time was kick into the right forward pocket to Ben Miller, and then he'd go long down the line. Then clubs would typically cut it off and then rinse and repeat. And the one or two times we did something a little bit different, we actually moved the ball coast to coast. But that's a topic for another time. But on Yze, I'm a little bit defensive of Yze when I see people criticise him and calling for his head and wanting to have change already. You just can't judge him based on 2024. Like I said, I know it's results driven and we all want to see success, and I don't want this to come across as accepting mediocre performances, but you got to have a bit of perspective about what that year was like for the club. Completely uncharted territory and will likely never happen again. Now, if we were getting these same results with close to our best 22 on the park each week, fair enough. Alarm bells ringing, and yeah, possibly different conversations are being had. But it wasn't the case. And I think my first real judgment of Yze is going to be not even 2025, because you've got to remember we're bringing in a whole raft of young players. We've just lost almost 1,300 plus games of experience. That's a lot to replace. So these young kids are going to come in, they're going to play a role, and I think, honestly, next year, 2025, is going to be a little bit of pain attached to it, unfortunately. But I think I'll be judging from 2026 onwards. Having said that, I and everyone else do want to see a bit more of a proper game plan in place for 2025, some actual direction, and see some significant growth in that part. But that doesn't mean we have to win every game, because that's not realistic. But yeah, that's where I think Yze is at. In terms of who will our draftees be and how many, so we've obviously got 8 live picks at the moment. Now, I don't think that we will use all 8. On the surface, if we just keep the ones we've got now without any trades leading into it, I think that we'll use the last 2 picks, so 23 and 24. I reckon they will end up being used on the night to trade into future firsts or future seconds for 2025. And that's just simply because when it gets to that part of the draft, clubs will notice some players who have slid down further than they thought, and it's just their chance to jump at that opportunity. And we obviously hold some pretty juicy picks in that department, so I dare say they might get shuffled around. There's also the speculation about trading with North for their pick 2, and some speculation of dealing with Port Adelaide and GWS as well to try and manufacture something there to help get pick 2, as well as some other picks. So quite a bit to play out. But in terms of who will draft, look, I suppose my guess is as good as everyone else's, but from what we all keep seeing and hearing, that Sam Lawler seems to be the number one name on our board, with Finn O'Sullivan a close second. Obviously, we had Jagger Smith at the club for a while. Not too sure if we're hoping he's going to slip to 6 potentially. But yeah, it does sound like that O'Sullivan and Lawler are the primary targets, with Lawler maybe being ahead at the moment. So going to be a fascinating draft night. We are actually doing a live show on draft night as well, for anyone who's keen to watch along, while we call out all the draft picks. But thank you for the question again, Noah. Hopefully that answers the question. The bottom line is, let's not hang Yze at the moment. My advice for people going to the footy next year as a Richmond supporter is go there with the mindset of being able to watch the kids grow and develop and enjoy them play, because we need to get these kids to 50 games as quick as possible, and then we will start to see some real development and growth, hopefully. So don't go there expecting to win too many games, but we do want to see some more improvement in game plan stuff from Yze and the coaching staff. Carousel is going to be a massive addition. Jake Batchelor will be good. And Stevie Morris being promoted is also a very, very big tick in my eyes for development. So I do expect to see some improvement in that area next year. Thanks again for the question, Noah. And make sure, guys, if anyone else has got any questions, send them through in the comments below and we will do our best to answer them.